Backwards compatibility should be a selling point for any new console. But what if I told you that Nintendo's approach to backwards compatibility on the Switch 2 isn't just underwhelming, it might actually be hurting the system? From disappointing ports to strange developer roadblocks, it feels like Nintendo's newest console is being held back by its predecessor. Let's dig into what's going on and why it matters for every Switch owner. On paper, the Switch 2's backwards compatibility sounds amazing, right? You can take your Switch 1 cartridges, pop them into your Switch 2, and they just work. But here's the catch. Many games don't look or run any better. In fact, some actually look worse, stretch across the Switch 2's sharper screen, which is a promise that Nintendo made back in April when they announced the Switch 2. The only way to actually really get a performance boost is through a dedicated Switch 2 edition, which is an upgraded version of an existing title that you have to pay for. But so far, the library is tiny and the rollout has been painfully slow. According to Digital Foundry's John Linman and Oliver McKenzie, multiple developers they spoke to at Gamescom said they were actually unable to get Switch 2 development kits. I made a short on this topic a few weeks ago. Go check that out. Some were even encouraged by Nintendo to just ship their game on Switch 1 and rely on backwards compatibility instead of making a proper Switch 2 version. That's pretty shocking. We're talking about a new system that's already at a premium price. It's setting sales records, and devs can't even get the tools to optimize their games for it. Take Shinobi Art of Vengeance as an example. The Switch 1 version is playable, but it's a blurry mess compared to other platforms. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is capped at 30 frames per second on Switch, while it runs at a silky smooth 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 5 and PC. A 2D platformer such as Ninja Gaiden should be running at 60 frames per second on the Switch 2, and most importantly, should be running natively on the console rather than relying on backwards compatibility technology. Even Cyberpunk 2077, which looks fantastic on Switch 2, way better than it did on Steam Deck, highlights how much potential is being wasted because we're still haven't seen similar treatment for The Witcher 3, which already ran pretty decently on the Switch at the time of the release. You would think that there would be some type of, upgrade version for a game like that, seeing that The Witcher 4 is going to be coming out here soon. What about Doom Eternal or Doom 2016, which I actually have a pet peeve on Doom 2016. I was very happy to play it on the Switch 1, but halfway through my campaign, I was dealing with audio issues, which was kind of weird as it went on. Right now, backwards compatibility is functioning as a crutch instead of pushing for next-gen ports. Nintendo seems content with the good enough versions from Switch 1. McKinsey from Digital Foundry even noted that it's baffling which developers do have Switch 2 kits. Some smaller indie studios have them, which is great. Of course, it's great as we've seen more indie studios are creating better games anyways, but several AAA studios don't. It's like Nintendo is doubling down on its indie-first identity while being extremely cautious with third-party AAA support. Maybe that's because of all the Switch 2 leaks leading up to launch, or maybe it's just Nintendo being Nintendo. Look, I love backwards compatibility. It means I don't lose my library of 400 plus physical games when I upgrade to a new hardware. But when it's being used as an excuse to avoid optimized ports or meaningful updates, it kind of backfires. Everyone I've talked to about the Switch 2, they give me the same response. They just didn't even want to bother talking about the Switch 2, which is really sad seeing that the Nintendo Switch was such a great console, and honestly, I would even go to the extent of saying it's legendary status. If the Switch 2 can run a game at 1080p, 60 frames per second, it shouldn't be stuck playing a 720p, 30 frames per second version, which we have seen time and time again. Right now, the Switch 2's backwards compatibility feels less like a feature and more like a safety net, and that's keeping it from reaching its full potential. Rumors suggest a Nintendo Direct is coming September 12th, just ahead of Tokyo Game Show, and I really hope Nintendo has a plan to roll out more Switch 2 editions. I just don't think so. I think with that show, it's going to be focused on Metroid Prime 4 and Hyrule Warriors. The Switch 1, remember, when it launched, within its first year, came out with Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Splatoon 2, and Super Mario Odyssey, all which were bangers from the very start. If Nintendo wants the Switch 2 to match that success long term, it needs native ports, meaningful updates, and confidence from developers. You look at recently Madden. Madden runs like crap on the system. FIFA, or FC 26, also runs like crap. But you have a game like Star Wars Outlaws, in which it wasn't really good in sales when it first launched back earlier this year, and it runs phenomenally on the system. So you're getting this inconsistency across the board, and I just wonder if it's because Nintendo is refusing to give dev kits to these developers, which they should release games at a gold standard, especially on a $500 console. In the end, backwards compatibility is great, but right now, I just see it as it's holding the system back. Then you get the game key card situation, which that's a whole nother video in itself. What do you think? Is backwards compatibility saving the Switch 2, or is it stopping Nintendo from truly pushing forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you want more deep dives into the gaming world, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more Nintendo news.